Billions are invested in the world's most complex and impressive megaprojects, but even loads of cash can't prevent some of them from going horribly wrong. Poor planning and terrible materials led to these projects being plastered all over the front page for the worst reasons. One of them even earned the nickname Widowmaker. From toxic chemical leaks to fatal collapses, let's have a look at megaprojects that turned disastrous. St. Francis Dam. Let's start with one of the worst civil engineering disasters in American history. This is St. Francis Dam. It was supposed to be a reservoir for the Los Angeles Owens River Aqueduct. The project was spearheaded by William Mulholland, manager and chief engineer of the Los Angeles Bureau of Waterworks and Supply. The dam was finished in 1926 and it was massive. It reached a height of 205 feet and spanned 700 feet across. The project seemed to be a success until things started to fall apart. Several cracks were found in the dam, but Mulholland dismissed them. The dam was filled to capacity on March 7, 1928 and declared safe. But just a few days later, on March 12th, disaster struck. Just before midnight, the dam's concrete wall collapsed. 12.4 billion gallons of water began surging down the canyon towards people's homes. A large 10,000-ton piece of the dam came crashing down with the flood. More than 1,000 homes were damaged or destroyed completely. It's estimated that around 450 people lost their lives, but the total could be much higher. Some bodies were never found, and many temporary workers were unaccounted for. An investigation into the disaster found that poor engineering and management was to blame. The rock supporting the dam was found to be unsuitable. Mulholland was ultimately cleared of all charges regarding the project's failure, but he still took full responsibility for the mistake. In the end, the St. Francis Dam disaster ended his career, caused millions of dollars in property damage, and took many civilian lives. Boston's Big Dig. Another American megaproject disaster occurred in Boston when the city embarked on what was at the time the most expensive highway project in United States history. The Big Dig was designed to improve traffic flow in Boston's Central Artery, a 6-lane elevated highway that cut through the downtown. The artery was unable to cope with growing traffic, so in 1991, the city began replacing the elevated highway with a more efficient 10-lane underground expressway. The project involved rebuilding bridges and boring a new tunnel under the harbor. It was expected to be completed by 1998 and given a budget of $2.8 billion, which is over $7 billion today when adjusted for inflation. Construction was overseen by the company Bechtel & Parsons Brinckerhoff. The Big Dig was a difficult project. It was being done in the middle of a very busy city that already had traffic issues. The challenges presented by the subsurface conditions were also underestimated, which eventually led to the project's most serious and fatal issue. In 2001, the tunnel started to sprout leaks. This was blamed on a few things: Bechtel & Parsons Brinckerhoff's decision to use a slurry wall as a lone barrier, as well as subcontractors failing to remove gravel and debris before pouring concrete. It was also suspected that the concrete used did not meet the project's specifications. These leaks accumulated and corrosive salt water entered the tunnel at alarming rates, until on July 10, 2006, the ceiling of the tunnel fell through. Debris weighing 24,000 kilograms fell on a vehicle, killing a passenger and injuring the driver. Investigation and repairs caused a section of the Big Dig to be closed for almost an entire year. The project was finally finished in December 2007. It ended up costing over $8 billion, or about $21.5 billion today. As a result of their fatal mistakes, Bechtel & Parsons Brinckerhoff agreed to pay $407 million in restitution, while smaller companies involved paid another $51 million. Hallandsås Rail Tunnel. Building tunnels requires precise and difficult construction tactics. When Sweden started building the Hallandsås Rail Tunnel, they had no idea what kind of problems they were about to face. The tunnel was designed to connect the northern and southern sides of the Hallandsås geological formation. Construction began in 1992 with an over $1 billion budget. The contractors knew it wouldn't be easy. The varied rocks and surrounding large volumes of water would make things difficult, but it ended up being even more complicated than they realized. State-owned company Kraftbyggjarna was tasked with drilling through the ridge, but Halbor, their tunnel boring machine, ended up being unsuited for the job and got stuck in the loose material at the tunnel's northern mouth. The schedule was pushed back and the first contractor gave up completely. The project restarted in 1995 when Swedish construction giant Skanska took over. They chose to use conventional Swedish engineering methods to drill and blast their way through the tunnel. However, they had big issues stopping water from leaking into the tunnel, and this is where they made a big mistake. The company decided to use Rock-A-Gill, a plastic containing acrylamide, to seal the cracks, but the substance was toxic and began to seep into the water leaking through the tunnel. The toxic water now covered the tunnel workers and began to flow into surrounding streams and rivers. The news broke near the end of the summer in 1997 as crops started to wither and die, and cows that drank from polluted streams became paralyzed. Fish in the surrounding waters were affected by the toxins, and tunnel workers were diagnosed with high blood acrylamide levels. Some even suffered nerve damage in their hands and feet. By the time the use of the sealant was halted, around 1,400 tons had already been used. Construction on the tunnel stopped for 7 years until it was eventually completed in 2015. Deepwater Horizon. Working with dangerous, toxic materials makes a construction project all the more difficult. Which brings us to one of the most famous megaproject disasters in modern history, the explosion of the Deepwater Horizon. Deepwater Horizon was an oil rig owned and operated by Transocean and leased by BP. It was located about 40 miles off the coast of Louisiana. On April the 20th, 2010, a surge of natural gas blasted through a concrete core, which had recently been installed by contractor Halliburton. The natural gas traveled up to the rig's platform, where it caught fire. The resulting explosion killed 11 workers and injured 17 others. The rig sank on the morning of April the 22nd. Oil began seeping into the Gulf of Mexico. BP estimated the seepage was equivalent to about 1,000 barrels per day, though the US government later found that it likely peaked at 60,000 barrels per day. Investigations revealed that cost-cutting decisions and negligence ultimately led to the disaster. The cores were too weak because they were made of a concrete mixture that used nitrogen gas in order to speed up the curing process. While the core had been installed by Halliburton, it was also found that BP and Transocean had ignored early signs of a problem. BP formed a $20 billion fund for victims of the spill. The incident is known as one of the worst environmental disasters in US history. Kashagan oil field. Now, let's have a look at a problematic megaproject that's existence so far has some calling it a major disaster waiting to happen. Kashagan oil field is located 50 miles offshore in western Kazakhstan's Caspian Sea. It was built to access elusive oil, but by 2014, over 13 years after its creation, the $50 billion project had produced almost no oil. Instead, it had earned itself the nickname Widowmaker because of leaking toxic, corrosive gases. 2 weeks after Kashagan had finally begun pumping oil, workers noticed a brown haze emanating from the water above one of the pipelines. It was a hydrogen sulfide leak. The toxic gas was about 17% hydrogen sulfide, one of the highest concentrations ever encountered. The gas is not only capable of chewing through the pipes, if inhaled, it could kill a person in under a minute. The pipeline had been designed to be resistant to the gas, but poor welding made it brittle. Cracks were patched, but another leak was found 2 weeks later, and the project was temporarily shut down. The oil field still functions and has produced more oil, but the leaky pipelines haven't stopped. Workers still show up at the oil field, but you can bet they're decked out in the best protective equipment. The oil field has spent most of its incredibly expensive life producing oil well under its capacity, and it's one of the most dangerous work environments in the world. Are there any other megaproject disasters you'd like to learn more about? Let us know in the comments. Like this video and subscribe to our channel for all the facts on the best and worst megaprojects in the world. Thanks for watching.